How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, today we're going to be talking about gossiping in the workplace. Guys, gossiping divides. It makes us question our loyalties. And if you're in an agency where you allow gossip, if you work in a facility in which the culture allows gossip, I'm going to tell you something, guys. You're just going to have a divided force, an isolated force, a force that doesn't trust no one. And in the end, just no way you could be effective in corrections if we stand there divided. Our job in regards to policing each other definitely has to put any type of kibosh to any level of gossip, because in the end, guys, as I said, gossip is truly divisive. We're going to have two guests on today. We're going to have Joe Pomponio, and we're also going to have Russ Hamilton. But real quick, the show is sponsored by two entities. We have American Military University. If you guys get a chance, please check out American Military University. It's a great online school, very supportive of what we do in corrections. Again, if you're looking to bring experience back into the classroom, it's a great spot to get your degree. So please check out American Military University. Very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do on Tier Talk. And we also have Guardian RFID. Guardian RFID, from inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. And guys, check out their YouTube channel too, because they got content up there that is very good for our profession. Tips, advice coming from me, Russ, William Young, Menard, Greg Piper, just a bunch of people just giving out good advice for this profession. So definitely, if you're new, you want to check it out. If you're, even been in the profession for a while, it's good to check out the technology that's being offered through Guardian RFID. So let's get Russ. What's up, Russ?
Anthony, how you doing tonight, sir?
All right, I'm doing well, Russ. I appreciate that, Russ. Hey, Russ, do you mind introducing yourself, please, sir?
My name is Russ Hamilton. I am a retired and former sergeant with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I am also a former senior juvenile correctional officer, and I currently work for a private company that does rehabilitation and reentry services for a small county probation department and a small county jail.
Russ, how's Keepers of Chaos going? I heard the numbers are growing.
Numbers are growing. Numbers are up there. The quality of the people coming in and wanting to learn is bar none to any other group out there, I do believe. And, it's just a great place to really learn about the profession, the deep side of it, rather than just, the shallow surface that we sometimes see in some other unmentioned places out there.
Hey, guys, by the way, Keepers of Chaos is on Facebook. It's a great group. It connects very well or partners very well with what we do here on Tier Talk. Again, it's great how we have a discussion here. The discussion can even be elaborated in the group more. But, guys, if you have questions about the profession, rookie, senior, supervisor, doesn't matter. You can find some really good quality people, good mentors even in Keepers of Chaos. We also have Joe. What's up, Joe?
Evening, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Well, Joe, we're not live, so we're not going to get an answer back.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
No, I'm doing fine, and Russ is okay. Hey, Joe, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Yeah, I'm the third wheel in this pivot thing. My name's Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant. The Texas Department of Corrections of 30 years. I've been retired since August, and in the bottom window of the panel member of Tier Talk.
Yeah. You know what, Joe? I'm going to mess that up for you. There you go, Joe. Yeah, so, hey, actually, you know what? Let's do it this way. I like this way. There you go. So, and then we just kind of pull people in. Hey, guys, if you get a chance, don't forget real quick, forgot to mention inmate manipulation decoded is on the market. Link is in the description. It's available on Amazon. Doing very well, guys. Thank you. Very blessed with the amount of copies that have been sold. And, guys, book number 2, My Journey from Officer to Administration, Lessons I Learned While Working in a Prison. Over 150 tips in this book that will kind of take you through from being a rookie to management, correctional management. So just some tips to kind of get the engine going. And then there's going to be a blank page behind each tip where you could write your notes. And then when you're done with the career, you could pass off that journal to somebody else. I'm really excited. I'm expecting the book hopefully to be out by the end of the month. We're in the editing process now. Thank you, David Schilling. He's a good friend of mine who's helping me edit the book. And guys, he's just doing great work. I believe he has a publishing company called Thin Gray Line Publishing. So once we're done with here, if anybody wants to send a book his way, I'm telling you guys, it's worth it. He really does. He works, man. He sends you back 17, 18 pages a day, and you just got to kind of review it and then, start finalizing it. And guys, he gives you as many times as you need to bounce it back off to make sure the book is where you want it to be, because he knows how important the message is. And if he does change something, he lets you know. So, you don't want to miss out on the message that you're trying to get. So I really enjoy working with David Schilling. So guys, real quick, gossiping in the workplace, guys, we know gossiping divides. We know it makes us question loyalties, and yet we still do it. I believe it's human nature just to want to gossip. I said before in a dialogue we had earlier that gossiping is a little bit different than venting. I think venting, sometimes we got to get it out. For me, I'm more about, how do we move forward from a dialogue? But sometimes I know people do have to vent. I get it. But usually venting is more of getting something out, and then hopefully we're able to move forward. Gossip really is about just, running on things that don't have any facts, and then literally just spreading cancer around the facility. Really, because I don't really see anything positive in gossip. And then when I kind of look at gossip, I look at the people that are doing it, and it kind of makes me validate the fact that I really don't see anything positive in gossip. Now, again, Russ, I'm sure at the beginning of your career and even up until you retired, do we gossip in corrections?
Yes. And, it's one of those things that, it will take on a life of its own, and it will become erosive to everything that happens inside of your department, or at least your unit and facility. Unlike venting, there's really nothing constructive about it. It tends to be a cheap, easy way for people to score some points to try and be more popular than that other person that they pick on, the ugly duckling, if you will. And, look over here, look how much better I am, not how good you are, but how much better I am than someone else. And so, it's really, it's kind of juvenile, and, it's a little bit like, high school all over again. But people, they fall into those cliques, and then no one wants to be on the outs. And so some people get chosen to be victims, sacrificial lambs to the whole process. And instead of working on everyone being on the same page, and everyone having something to contribute, and everyone being able to make the place a little bit safer, a little more easy running. Instead, we just, it's every man for himself. And, it's a real shame when it ends up that way. We need to watch it, because it really can potentially be the difference between life and death.
Yeah. And I want to mention, guys, gossip also never, when someone chooses to gossip about somebody, they never go to the person that they have the concern with. That's why I say gossip is never really going to be factual, because in the end of the day is, if I'm going to gossip about Russ, I'm not going to go to Russ. I'm going to go to Joe. And then me and Joe are both going to gossip about Russ. Most of the shit's going to be based on assumptions and, no facts. And instead of us going to Russ to confirm or whatever it is, we decide just to let ourselves carried away, make our own assumptions on things, and basically paint a picture that is so far away from where the painting really needs to be. And again, that's really the cowardice of gossipers. You could really nip gossiping by just going to the person if there is a concern, instead of going to everybody else around them to try to paint a picture. And I will tell you one thing, guys, sometimes people that are involved in gossip, they gossip because they want the picture to be painted their way. So they know the moment they go to this person and confront it, well, guess what? You were the one that were lying, not the person you were talking about. And now the picture you were painting in front of everybody really doesn't make any sense. Hey, Joe, what's your thoughts on gossiping? Have you dealt with that in Texas? I'm sure it doesn't happen in the Texas DOC criminal.
Oh yeah, a lot. Venting, is way different from gossiping. Venting is normally based on a true situation that took place. Yeah. Gossiping is non-factual, causes instant divide, and it's something that you shouldn't tolerate as a shift supervisor or shift leader. That's something that you should be you should let them know up front that won't be tolerated. Because, yeah, I mean, it causes a divide. It questions loyalties. And, you know, I tell you, in 30 years, I've 2 words that I've always seen in a correctional setting that will cause an instant divide, regardless of whether it's true or not: dirty employee. You mentioned the words dirty employee and put a name with it, instant divide, regardless of whether it's true or not. You know, and that person may not have done anything wrong. It's just like you said, it's just somebody trying to outshine somebody else, trying to make themselves look better. So what am I going to do? Hey, I'm going to say, you know, Russ is a dirty employee. He hangs out with this inmate too much. You know, he's packing a little more in than he used to. You know, just little subtle things. You know, it doesn't have to be anything massive, anything major. I mean, the small things is what gets the mind going. And, you know, gossip it's dangerous because, you know, when things hit the fan, you know, whether you're the victim or the spreader, you know, loyalties are questioned. Does this person have my back? Am I going to have theirs? You know, shouldn't be tolerated at all, period.
And you know what's funny? You mentioned something about corruption. Priya right now has a habit of, you got these inmates that make these false complaints, which winds up making us have to separate staff from the inmate. And the longer the inmate is separated from staff, sometimes staff who may have believed that the officer didn't do anything wrong, the longer the investigation takes place, the longer the officer's credibility or the staff member starts to lessen because the investigation is taking so long. And now people start to gossip. And now the officer that or the staff member that's been kind of separated now loses their level of credibility. You know, that's another big thing about gossiping, is it really attacks people's credibility, you know. And so I want to start with the culture. So we do know that leadership sets the culture. They set what is allowed and what isn't allowed. And I would like to think they set it through modeling the right behavior. You know, that's the key. You know, if you're expecting to push good habits and good behaviors, then we have to look up and see those same things as well coming from management's office. But the big concern here is, I think when it comes to gossip, even though we do set the culture, you still got the peers. The peers are the ones that are most immediate to the frontline workforce. So the problem is that the peers are the ones that could have the biggest effect when it comes to gossip. They're the ones that are, you know, that if they spread it, then they're the ones that can actually cause the big divide. So again, I want people to know, guys, if you're part of a circle that allows gossip just to be passed, you know, one of you guys literally have to step up and say, hey, guys, this isn't right. As hard as it may be, one of you guys have to step up and say it isn't right, because I'll guarantee you the moment you're not in that room, somebody is saying something about you as well. And I think the cool thing about this is once someone makes it known that the gossip is uncomfortable, other people start to step up. And they start to say, yeah, I don't feel like listening to this either. And yeah, neither do I, because nobody really wants to be caught in a situation where, you know, everybody's in this room, let's say, talking about Joe. And, you know, one day, let's say Joe finds out that we're all talking about him. Nobody wants to be in that room, you know, but it takes courage for somebody. And I've seen it, guys, for someone to say, you know what, guys, I'm sorry if you're going to be talking about Joe like this. I'm either going to go tell Joe, or I'm going to go ahead and leave so I'm not a part of it. And I'll guarantee you, once that person leaves, a few others will also leave. And the person that was starting the gossip will be like, I don't know if I should continue doing this, because people that tend to gossip are the ones that don't want to have that face-to-face interaction with, let's say, Joe. But what's your thoughts on that, Joe? If you're caught up in you're caught up in a room where they tend to gossip, what's your thoughts if someone does stand up and say, I'm a little uncomfortable with this?
Well, I mean, it's admirable, because, you know, at some point, you know, you just get tired of listening to that same old shit every day. You know, it takes a strong-willed person to have the integrity enough to go, you know what, you got no facts to support anything that you're saying. I haven't seen it myself, so until I see it myself, I'm not going to believe it. You know, and you know, as a mid-level supervisor, as a lieutenant, you know, I used to tell my sergeants, you know, if you see something or you suspect something, you know, come to me. Bitch up, don't bitch down. Do not go to the COs and say, you know what, I'm so tired of Officer Hamilton, with his trifling crap, and he's always complaining, he's a pain in my ass. That when you got a supervisor that does that also destroys the morale, because you'll get those that'll jump on that bag going, hey, you know what, yeah, you're right, Sarge, I'm tired of listening to him too. Again, you're just jockeying for position in the worship chart, and at some point you wind up standing alone.
So let me ask you a question about what you said, Joe, because that makes sense. So, like, if I'm a sergeant, right, and let's say I'm having trouble with, let's say, Officer Hamilton, right? So if I talk like if I go down and I talk to the officers, now mind you, I'm a sergeant, and I talk to the officers, that could be considered gossip. But that same problem, if I bring it up to a lieutenant, could become a professional dialogue as into what we need to do with Russ if he continues acting that way. Correct? Because you can't expect the officers.
If you're bitching down and not up, not only are you undermining Officer Hamilton's credibility and authority, you as that sergeant bitching to that CO, you're undermining your own authority on the cool, and you don't even know it, because you got other COs listening to this and going, what, he can't handle his job? He can't straighten out a CO by himself? He's got to come to us? Versus him going to the lieutenant saying, hey, look out, Lou, Hamilton's been he's been screwing up. This is what I've seen. This is what I suspect he's doing. I think it's something we need to address. That starts a professional dialogue. And then from that point, the lieutenant can give him some guidance. And at the same time, he still has his credibility. Okay, Sarge, this is what you do. You sit Officer Hamilton down and you have that one-on-one with him. Tell him what you see. Tell him what you suspect. So, you've dealt with the situation with the officer one-on-one without spreading gossip, hatred, division, and everything else amongst the rest of the staff.
I think that, you know what? Hey, Russ, what's your thought? I think that makes total sense. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Yeah, there's just always a tendency on people in general to want to pander to the least common denominator, right? The easy thing to do is to gossip. The easiest thing to do is to cast aspersions upon the water, if you will. The harder thing to do is to appeal to the best of what's inside every single person, and to be a true trailblazer, and not just simply someone who wants to be the cool kid, so to speak. So, it's much harder to take that route, because you really have to have your game together. You really have to, understand what's at stake, and you have to be the one willing to step out there and, to be bucking the wind, to be, bucking the current, and to actually, be trying to lead people in a direction that they ultimately do want to be led, but that they're resistant to at the same time.
Yeah, and I think, guys, I want to mention something. If you notice something here, there are going to be things that obviously we may have to handle. But I would like to think that even if let's say like I am a peer and I have a problem with Russ and I go to Joe, you got to realize something. It's not going to stay between me and Joe if I'm trying to handle. Eventually, me and Joe are going to get to Russ. We're just figuring out a game plan before we go to Russ. That's why I like what Joe said, too. I'm going to go upwards, because, if I'm looking at a supervisory concern, why am I going downwards for? They're really not much that they can do to solve the problem. Let me go to my supervisor first, and then we could discuss the concern. But I promise you, all efforts are going to be to bring that dialogue to light and bring Russ into that discussion. I think for me, when it comes to gossip is never meant to bring the person into that discussion. Gossip is really just meant to keep the person out. And I think that's where the concern is. So, like, again, if Joe has a problem, or I'm sorry, let's say we'll go with the same scenario. If I have a problem with Russ, and let's say Joe is my peer. Okay, let's talk about the corruption side. I think Russ is getting too close to the inmates, Joe. Now, me and Joe aren't going to talk about, bad about Russ. It's going to be like, maybe there's something we can do. Maybe we should talk to Russ about these things just to make sure he's aware that he's doing these things. And then right after that, when we get a chance, we talk to Russ, we go to solve the issue. That's a lot different than, yo, you see what Russ is doing with those inmates? Yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe he's doing it. Yeah, he's going to get himself caught up. And we do nothing about it. Now it becomes gossip because then eventually, the dialogue leaves between me and Joe. It goes to everybody else. It starts to spread. And here's the funny thing. We don't know if Russ knows if what he's doing is right or wrong. We don't know. We haven't confronted him at any point, which is not us policing each other, which is horrible. If we know Russ is doing something wrong, we should try to talk to him, before he goes down the wrong path. But the sad thing is, guys, is that now here's what we just did. I talk to Joe, Joe talks to Sam, talks to Pete, talks to Linda, whoever it is. And then now Russ, without even knowing, is on an island by himself. And even though Russ, maybe he is too involved, we'll try to figure it out. But not one of us has ever gone to Russ to try to make the effort to help him. And that to me is sad because I'm going to tell you why, and I'll go with Joe first, is that when you have gossipers, they're looking to paint a picture. And to be honest with you, when people gossip, it's like they want that picture to be true. I just really do, because if you weren't about the gossip, then why not go to the person and get the facts and then handle the situation? But this is never about going to the person. It's about me painting a picture of what I want you to see. And then God forbid you do go to the person. Well, then you're going to find out that everything I've been saying is a bunch of BS. But what do you think, Joe? Do you think the end result here is ultimately, if there is a concern with somebody, it is ultimately, hey, guys, I'll give one more example. So let's say we are all talking about somebody in an area. And let's say, it does get a little uncomfortable. I do like when, someone stands up and says, I'm a little uncomfortable about this. So either I'm going to bring the dialogue back to Russ to let Russ know this is what's happening, or I don't want to be involved. But look at that first solution. Hey, guys, are we going to all sit together now, discuss what the concern is, and then go to Russ together as a team to try to correct it? Or are we just going to leave shit here and just let it fester? What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Well, as an individual, you also got to think about the long-term damage. Even after you gossiped about somebody and later on down the line, you decide to finally bring it to light, the damage is already done, and the person that you're gossiping about now has long-term mental damage about, your integrity and your loyalty to the mission of the facility and to your team. And again, big difference between venting and gossiping. You got to think about the long-term damage. It's easier to go one-on-one, but again, there's a difference between, gossip. It's all about jockeying for position. It's 90% of the time gossip's based on he said, she said, and not on factual events, where, venting is something totally different. That's something that you were there for or were involved in. The long-term effects of that, are immediate and they last a while. And, it takes a while to gain that trust back of your coworker after they've done gossiped about you, so it's not just an immediate effect, but there's a long-term effect that doesn't go away in a short period of time. And, when you start dividing a team like that, it's never a good thing, and it needs to be dealt with.
And you notice, I want to say something, Russ. I think you'll find this interesting too. Do you notice that when we've been talking about the gossip here, we're not talking about personal gossip, because there's no room in the workplace for that. There's no room for any gossip, but I want to make sure people know we didn't mention personal gossip. We mentioned gossip that relates to someone being effective at the job, because that's when we're able to do something about it and build that person up. But I will tell you something right now. If you decide that you want to gossip about someone's personal life behind the wall, you're already gone too far. I mean, yeah, gossiping is here, but gossiping about someone's personal life behind that wall, knowing that anybody can hear it, it can get out there. Like, Joe, when he gets home, he takes the bottle, slams it down at night. And that's going to make it to the population. That. So I mean, right there, I don't give a shit what anybody says. The moment you start gossiping about someone's personal life, someone's got to step up and put an end to that. automatically. There is no ifs and buts about that. That takes gossiping to a whole nother level. That takes gossiping to a whole nother level. And again, if you are going to do something that's meant to help that person, let's say Joe is a drinker, and it's meant to, and you want to do something as a team to help that person, do not have the discussion in the prison. Do not have that discussion in the jail. Take the people that you can trust, discuss some course of action, and do whatever you can to keep it within that group. Because sometimes you do need a group approach. But as I said, the difference here is that we're not just gossiping to talk. We're gossiping so we can do something to help Joe. But what's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Yeah, you get to the point where you may be able to have that constructive dialogue. I think what you said before about, somebody needs to stand up and say, hey, this needs to end here, or it needs to die with me, whatever's going on. The point about, the outside influences, the outside gossip is very valid too, in that, we know that that's completely beyond the pale. I mean, we shouldn't, even to the degree that we can control it, just be talking to each other about our personal things, because there's so much of it out there already that the inmates can hear. And then someone repeats what we said about something personal. It doesn't have to be gossip. And, these inmates, they're smart enough out there to build that intel book and try and find some way to use it. So all of that stuff, set it aside for a different time, a different place, and under different circumstances. I think it's great that at this point here, we've tried to confine it toward that which is really truly black and white, and just try and, show that the dangers of it really, impact just the way we operate out there. And, a person that's being gossiped about, that knows that and is trying to fight off spurious allegations and stuff, he's not going to be at 100%. She's not going to be at 100% because, she's concerned with, trying to tamp down whatever's coming, whether there's any truth or whether it's all spin. And then other people are more concerned with, trying to tell their version of what the story is to add more stink on to what's been put there, especially if the person might be mildly unpopular or something. So, I think being intentional and being and acting with a conscious effort to, let things die. You be the last one on the vine. You're not passing things on, or to try and also, be that leader, be that trailblazer that says, hey, you know what, guys, this is gossip. And it's not helpful toward what we're doing. It's not helpful to our mission. Be that one person in 10 or 20 or 100 that is, willing to take that, popularity hit in order to do what is right.
Yeah, and guys, I want to mention something too. Sometimes we're going to work with a bad supervisor. It happens, and sometimes, unfortunately, they may do foolish stuff that, make us question their credibility. I'm not saying they're corrupt. I'm not saying that. Just, they're just not the best at being in a leadership position. Sad thing is, guys, is that what we need to do, even when you have that leader who's not the best, again, we could always voice our concerns to that supervisor. That's the key. That's where your ultimate action should be. But what you don't want to do is, instead of talking to that supervisor and expressing your concerns, to just talk amongst yourself with no effort of ever bringing it to the supervisor. Because the problem is one thing is that even when you have a bad supervisor that's not up to par, they may not know. They may not know. I mean, it's sad to say, they just may not be that self-aware in what they're doing. And then all we're going to do is, yeah, Joe, man, Russ, man, he's just not good at what he does. He's horrible. And then you want to get that one person that says, well, have you ever spoken to the supervisor yet? Like, do you assume that they know what they're doing is wrong? Oh, they must know what they're doing wrong, but you don't know. So this dialogue that you're having with everybody here is not really helping the team, because at the end of the day, what's our job? Our job is to try to find some way to build faith in those supervisors. So if you're not having the dialogue with them, you can't assume that they know what you think they know. And I know that for a fact. I know a lot of time there's discourse because we go on the assumption that this supervisor knows what they're doing is foolish or stupid, however it is. And then the problem is that when someone actually goes to the supervisor's like, oh shit, I didn't even know I was doing that. And all of a sudden, 180, they correct their behavior. But it took a year to do it because finally there was someone to say, you know what, guys, this conversation here is BS. What are we doing here? Why doesn't one of us just go to the supervisor, tell the supervisor, hey, the thing you did the other day, and whatever it is, what wasn't really the right thing to do. We would have done it this way. Oh shit, you know what, Gangi, you're right. Next time we'll do it that way. But it's a shame how long it had to go through before someone steps up and says, why don't we just talk to Joe? Or why don't we just talk to Russ? What are we doing here? Because again, the biggest concern you have is in the culture is the faith in our leadership, the faith in those supervisors. You have to do what you can to protect confidence in them, because if you don't protect confidence when shit hits the fan, people aren't going to willing to sacrifice certain things under that individual. So when you get people that are gossiping about bad supervisors, I think at that point we get everybody to the table and say, hey guys, we got to go to this supervisor and we got to explain what these concerns are, because maybe the supervisor will be willing to grow from this. But right now we're not doing anything but just questioning the supervisor's credibility, which in the end destroys us as a team, because without that supervisor having credibility, which one of us is going to want to go in the mix with them? So what's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Well, I mean, that's where a good leader comes involved, because, a good leader is going to set the standards. A good leader is going to set the expectations, and I'm basing this on from lieutenants, down to sergeants. Your first conversation when you take over a shift is going to be with them sergeants. Look, this is what I expect. This is what I expect you to do. This is what I will tolerate, and this is what I won't tolerate. Because you got to think about it. Gossip has so much damage to it that at the end of the day, you got an officer who shows up, doesn't call in, busts their ass, and they're the target of unneeded gossip, untrue gossip. And, what winds up happening at a certain point is you wind up losing a workhorse behind 4 substandard employees in a clique that started that mother hen, he said, she said, gossiping stuff. You're going to lose the one good hand that is going to be there when the shit hits the fan, versus the other 4 that'll probably sit back and go, you see what he did? You see what they did? That's where the supervisors need to set that expectation. We're not going to do it. We're not going to tolerate it. If I hear it, I'm going to deal with it accordingly. And same thing. It's not just, COs. I mean, some of your supervision does the same thing. And again, you got to set that standard. 90% of gossip comes from ignorance, not ignorance because of stupidity, ignorance because of lack of knowing. Just like you said, you may have a supervisor that all the COs think are substandard. I give my disciplinary cases to Sergeant Hamilton and my shit never goes through. I'm tired of these inmates rubbing their nuts on me because he's not doing these cases. And, behind the scenes, Sergeant Hamilton's building intel using that case as information. Right. But he can't relay that information out at the time because he's got a confidential investigation going on. Again, 90% of gossip comes from ignorance, the lack of knowing.
You're also touching on something else, too. When we make the assumption is usually selfish by nature. Like, instead of me trying to understand why Russ or Sergeant Hamilton's holding on to those cases to do something beneficial, let's say, for the facility, all I care about is my needs. So exactly. Having said that, when I start to gossip, it's like, well, Russ ain't doing shit for me. So now 9 times out of 10, guys, if you really take a look at it and you really listen to the gossip, I bet you there'll be some selfishness from the person that's saying it in regards to whatever they assume that the person's not doing it is doing that affects this person personally. That I thought that was that's definitely something that's spot on. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on that, Russ? Do you believe that a lot of the gossip could be self-serving?
Yeah, it can be self-serving, and I like what he said about the ignorance. It doesn't even necessarily have to be something as covert or secret as developing intel. Maybe if you gave the chance for the guy to explain why he's doing what he's doing, then it would make sense. Maybe he just has he or she has a different way of dealing with things, a different way of managing his assets, and a different way of solving what he's doing or he or she is doing. So I think that maybe if we're short-sighted and we're not trying to understand and see from that person's perspective, we can just give them, short change and just assume, well, since they're not doing it the way that I would be doing it, they're wrong. I think that there's a lot of that goes on because, we want to see the way that we see the world implemented because after all, each and every one of us knows best automatically.
And Russ, real quick about the culture and doing what we can to remain confidence, to build those confidence in our leaderships. I mean, how important is that when, you may have, the front line or, maybe the immediate supervisors, whatever it is, to the front line, start attacking the leadership based on assumptions, which turn into gossip. And what can we do? I mean, do we have to make an effort to try to protect the integrity of those people that are in management or those higher level supervisory roles?
I think that's a really complex question. Definitely the gossip aspect of it can make it a whole lot worse, right? I think that we've all probably suffered and worked under substandard supervisors and managers. And that's a concern. There's a real basis for some of those concerns, especially if they're wandering so far off the reservation that we don't know what's going to happen next. Then we throw some of that, gossip into the mix and we spin a few stories. It can get very much out of hand. I think that's the point at which, we have to have those people that are on the front line that step up into that leadership role and take over those aspects of it. Not as far as a mutiny. That's not what I'm talking about. But I mean, as far as stepping up to the plate and handling business as it needs to be handled. And then hoping that you can, bring, management or admin in to actually deal with the situation.
Yeah. What's funny too is gossip could be built, as we said, on some type of self-serving assumption that we really, as a team, we may not want to let loose. It's a cancer technically. So I think that's where even management, if you feel that there's something that the front line is not understanding, you have to go above and beyond and make sure that they do, because if they don't, then you could start to see those self-serving assumptions become gossip. In my opinion, I think that's 100% some type of progression towards that. I think that if things are happening, as I said, corrections, I like to use the word evolve. Most people understand they use the term change. I like to say evolve, as I said, because it's a bottom-up invested process as opposed to a top-down process. But I do believe that if you're trying to pioneer this evolution or pioneer the change, and you do it where you're not letting the staff understand why the change is needed, then what's going to happen is staff's going to start assuming the worst. And then that's where the gossip starts to happen. And then also on top of that, gossip also can cause generalized animosity towards a whole department. Here I am, Russ's admin. Russ has been Russ, you've gotten promoted real quick, just doing a shitty job in every position. But having said that, just sorry.
You're my daddy.
Yeah, you've been the example in every one. Great job on the promotions, but you fucking failed at every level. But what I'm saying is that, so Russ is carrying out what's expected, but maybe he's not the best at really trying to translate that message from the strategy to the tactical side of it all. And now the problem is that when he doesn't get that understanding from the front line or the buy-in or the investment, then they start making these assumptions, and then Russ becomes a reflection of admin. So I don't have a problem with just Russ. I got a problem with admin. Now, here's the funny thing, though. Now, let's say Joe is admin and he goes out there and he explains it a little bit better. Even if Joe has even if Joe is doing it on behalf of admin, Joe's different. Joe's not part of admin. That's how they'll look at it. So even when you go to do something correct, once the negative animosity is spread towards that department, the other people that represent it that may do something good, they get pulled out of it. It's like, well, you're not admin. I know you're admin, but you're different than everybody else. It's like, no, guys, I'm just the same as everyone else. It's just that you have a habit of hating the whole department, when maybe Russ didn't translate something correctly, but this is what Russ meant to say, or this is what we're trying to do. And it's like, well, I know, Joe, you're just trying to spread a good message, but you're not like every admin. It's like, wow, it's like you want to hold. It's like they want to hold to that generalized animosity. And if there's ever any conflict with that, what they do is they minimize the connection of that good person to that department. I've seen it even happen on cross-departmental sides. If I'm custody and I don't get along with medical, just in general, but then I get one nurse that goes above and beyond and has some respect, all of a sudden she's not like the rest of medical. It's like, but you've only had a problem with one medical nurse the whole time. It's like, yeah, but this one, she's different. It's like, yeah, but you're generalizing animosity. And that's another thing, guys. That's what causes that divide. As I said, if I have a problem with that one nurse and I generalize it towards the whole department, and then I go back and I start to spread it, now you have two departments at war with each other. What should have been a concern between me and that nurse now becomes a concern with custody and medical. Because here's what happened. That nurse went back and generalized me as not a problem with Anthony Gangi. Fuck custody today. Custody is just being an asshole today. And then here I am. I go back. It's not a problem with the nurse. It's a problem with medical in general. So now, because I'm closer to my custody people, they're closer to their medical people. The problem is that now we're divided. So what do you do in order, even if you stop the gossip? If it gets so far like that, where you're so divided department by department, what we tend to do is find somebody with influence over those departments to build that bridge back again, because it literally started because Gangi couldn't get along with this nurse. And now a month later, medical and custody are just not talking. I mean, am I lying? Joe, I'll have you go first.
No, I mean, gossip and misunderstandings can lead to bad things. And, it gets so far out of hand that, hell, at some point you have to have a mediator. You have to have that independent person come in and hear both sides and go, okay, simple solution. You're thinking this way, you're thinking this way. The reason why they're doing this is because of this, and the reason why they're doing this is because of that. At some point you're going to have that mediator. But, again, it takes strong leadership to stand in there, stand up, and, verbalize correctly. Not everybody can verbalize and communicate effectively. That's the main thing is get the point across, do it effectively, in a non-condescending tone. We've all been a victim of gunslinger policies that administration has put out. We get it. Okay, you guys need to talk about this in your next shift briefing. And, you start talking about it and you already hear the hisses, you hear the teeth sucking, you hear the lips smacking, you already know what's coming. You feel it, it's coming. You're just waiting for the first bullet to come to you. And, that's your opportunity right then and there to communicate the mission effectively. This is why we're having to do this, folks. It's not that we're doing anything wrong. We just got to do things a little different. And this is the reason why. If you can communicate that, you can cut 80% of that animosity and stuff out. But you have to communicate. You have to open your mouth. You have to verbalize. You have to talk. And you have to talk truthfully.
Yeah, because I truly believe what we're discussing is correct. I think wrongful assumptions do lead to gossip. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on that? The generalized animosity and how, basically my issue with one person in medical could eventually turn into a medical versus custody concern.
Yeah, the only true way that you really get that generalized animosity is to have, a large part of your population, of your workforce, that isn't being, intentional and conscious about, recognizing the whole gossip thing. I think that's one of the really, important and valuable things about actually doing a video like this, is to make people aware. Are there things that they can do to mitigate all this? Well, sure there is. Even if they're just, in a room and they're one of the, 2 or 3 people in there that understand some of these principles and are willing to give it thought and are willing to, back up and not get involved in the part of the process that actually is the gossip. If we can convert that room into having, instead of 3 people in it, 5, 10, or 15 people in it, then, we can actually make real progress and, really slow down the whole gossip train. And, maybe there would be a lot of gossip that would never get started in the first place by people being intentional and conscious about what they do at work and keeping lessons like this actually in mind.
Yeah, and guys, to be honest with you, I wish gossiping was a firing offense. I mean, it could maybe to some point where it comes to conduct on becoming, because gossiping could lead to EED depending on how someone subjectively interprets that gossip. EED could be subjective, and you wind up having to spend time proving, what you said wasn't related to whatever that effective category is. But having said that, it's definitely something you don't want to be a part of. That's why we're giving you the dialogue. And the sad thing is everyone here, me, Russ, Joe, we've all been a part of it because it's human nature. It's human nature. But as you start to move up in the profession and you tend to look down to see how things are operating, the one thing you want is for everything to run in fluid motion. You want that momentum. And then you look at the things that causes divide. And gossip is definitely one of them. So from a highest level, you could see where that can put a stop into everything that you're trying to accomplish and how eventually that could affect, the whole orderly running of a facility, and again, looking at the highest level, what are things that we need to do to keep the momentum of a good working team? And we have to set the culture that gossip is something that we have to have zero tolerance for, and again, I was watching a special the other day, was with Dave Ramsey. He was on YouTube, and a little different there, but if he heard you gossiping, he get you the hell out. There was just come right to the office and you're done. He's not going to have that because he doesn't want the ship to be divided. But second thing is, if you're even gossiping about the supervisors, he's like, I'm going to tell you something. I love what he said. He goes, I'm paying you money to carry out whatever this mission is. And then you're going to be bad-mouthing me? Like you're going to be bad-mouthing me? You're done. Because one thing is I can't have my loyalties in question. If you have a concern, I'm not saying you can't speak. I have an open door. And by the way, that's another thing, guys. When you have people that are willing to talk and you rather not talk to them, you rather go around them, that's where it's truly disrespectful. On top of that, if you got a supervisor who has an open door and then you sit there and talk to everybody else, but then go to the supervisor, it is insulting. It is. It just literally questions your loyalty to the job and what has to be done. So I think the end result of this dialogue was that you gossip, it just doesn't have an end result because you're never going to go to the person that you're talking about. And most likely it could be self-serving. I mean, I think it's a great question where, if I was gossiping about Russ to Joe, I think it would be great if Joe came to me and said, why are you telling me this for? Like, what are you trying to gain from this? I'm not trying to gain nothing. Then why say it? If you're not trying to gain anything from it, then why are you telling me? Put that person right back on the spot. Hey man, just curious. Why are you telling me this? Like, what is it that you're trying to get out of this? I mean, if you have people doing this, it's tough, but it has to be done. But what's your thoughts? Am I right about it? As moving up, you try to do whatever you can to keep the facility moving forward, but maybe you could wrap that up in your closing thoughts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something you shouldn't tolerate. Gossiping, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Some people feed into it and some people kind of put it in their memory banks thinking, why are you coming to me about this person? Or are you being deflective? Are you trying to put heat on them to keep the heat off of you? What are you doing wrong? it takes a strong leader or leaders to communicate the mission. Gossiping and demoralizing people on a shift was something I never tolerated, and I have disciplined many a sergeant behind that, and to the point where they know I don't tolerate that shit. We got enough problems in our facilities now, being shorthanded, having feces thrown at us and every damn thing else. And, you're coming to me with this trifling bullshit about, Hamilton's taking nips out in the parking lot or what Hamilton's doing. He's watching too much TV in the day room with the convicts. Just don't feed into it. Don't tolerate it. If you don't address it, and this is one of, sayings I used to say a long time ago, if you don't address it, you bless it. So, don't bless it, address it, because at the end of the day, you're allowing the morale of your shift to go downhill. You're allowing the morale of your leadership to go downhill. And at the end of the day, like I said earlier, you're going to wind up losing good employees behind substandard employees. And when them good employees jump ship on you and go find other jobs, you're left with those substandard employees. So, again, if you don't address it, you bless it. Just don't allow it to happen. It's not good for the system. It's not good for the facility. And if you think that, your gossiping doesn't get out to the offender population, there's always going to be a convict ear hustling. And what you say can and will be used against you at some point. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, but it's going to get used against you.
They have good memories. And I want before we get to Russ, someone sent me a message today. I won't say his name, but they were asking me for advice, and you reminded me of something just now. This is going to real quick. I'm going to read you something, and I want to ask you, what advice would you give this person? We'll go with Russ first, then we'll go Joe, and then we'll do Russ's closing thoughts. So when you connect with me on Facebook, it's going to say "Get Started," and then you could message me, and if I see it. So first thing he says is, "That was weird," but that's just what Facebook does. He goes, "Anyway, I feel like I come under a bit of scrutiny within my department, and I feel as if my personnel file is tainted since I've been a rookie. My department is notorious for being a stepping stone to patrol, but throws good potential officers under the bus if they know that they want to go to patrol like me." Okay. Now, I have been working under probation and parole as a CO at a community work release center and got myself into a pickle with my manager and HR. My understanding is that I was being pro-social, learning to play a guitar from an excellent inmate after my work had been completed for the day, and they took it as me being potentially compromised. I'm just trying to keep myself afloat right now and trying to get out of the prison system. Feels like it's going to be a tough task at this point. I find it crazy that I could basically be a hero at my prior facility, and now I'm treated like dirt. So let's talk about real quick, and then we'll get back. Now, we're going right to gossiping right now, which is sad, but I'm hoping that you watch the video, because we know you watched the video. That's why I'm having the dialogue. So there is a direction for this to get back to you, so you can understand why, in my opinion, but I could be wrong. The moment he said the inmate was teaching him how to play guitar, Joe, your thoughts on that? And mind you, Joe, he's listening. So please talk as if you want to give him advice, so it doesn't look like we're gossiping, because that would ruin the whole topic we just did.
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as that goes, if it's inside a correctional facility setting, you gotta look at the big picture, and you gotta look at both sides of the fence. An easy or a simple gesture may look like a compromise in somebody else's eyes. So, you got to think, you got to be self-aware of where you are and think about the big picture. Now, everybody works with convicts at some point, whether you're in medical and you got a janitor, whether you're in maintenance and you got a whole maintenance crew full of convicts. Regardless of where you are or where you work, you always have to keep the big picture in mind. Even though what you did in your mind doesn't really, okay, so he taught me a few strings. He's a chaplain's guitarist. He taught me a few strings. in somebody else's eyes could be an employee compromised. And again, one simple gesture will turn into a lifetime of gossip.
Well, that's. I wrote down and said you put yourself in a very tough position. Taking guitar lessons from an inmate definitely is not supported by your trusted role. It actually puts you in some form of obligation to the inmate. If he's giving you free lessons, people will wonder, what is the inmate getting in return? Now check this out. Joe gave us the very polite correctional management answer. Russ, I want to paint a scenario for you, Russ. You're in San Quentin doing your tour as a sergeant, and you see Officer Gangi getting a guitar lesson from one of the inmates. Go ahead, Russ.
Hell no. No. Okay, so look, we have this thing, where we talk about, potentially are our loyalties divided, and I know nobody wants to talk about us versus them and stuff, and that's not the way we mean it to be. And this guy in this, he mentioned a specific phrase, which was, trying to be pro-social. Right. Well, you know what? Our ability to impact inmates in a pro-social manner is limited by our prescribed role. Okay. There's only so far we can go. There's only so much that we can do. And we put ourselves in a position where we, not necessarily that we can be, compromised or corrupted, but we can certainly be influenced and we can certainly be manipulated. So even if you're one of those people that claim that you can't be corrupted, that does not mean that you can't be manipulated. So if I was going to break this down into the simplest way to understand this, it would be this. Okay. Is what I'm seeing from this officer and this inmate, is it an event or is it a process? There's no way for me to know the difference, right? Because I don't know. Is this just something pro-social that the officer thinks that he's doing that's misguided? Or is this a process that the inmate has undertaken in order to manipulate this officer, potentially corrupting him, co-opting him somewhere along the way? So that's how I would break it down. The difference between an event or a process.
Russ, you must have read this book.
I learned from the best, Anthony. I'm going to be able to, be you. You can just send me on little manipulation missions everywhere across the country.
The book is all about the process. Hey guys, so real quick before Russ gives his closing thoughts. So there's another company I'm working with that may start sponsoring. We're working on it now. I'll know more, but they do have a YouTube channel called Jail Talk, and it's a smaller channel. But I am going to go on their show. So we were going to do it virtually, but then they decided that they want to fly me in. So I was like, well, I'm very limited time because get towards the end of the year, I don't really have a lot of time left. So they have their own plane with a pilot. So if things work out, looks like I'm going to get to go on a private plane to, I don't even know what, I got so caught up in the private plane. I have no idea where the fuck I'm flying to, actually. That should have been a question I asked. I don't know where I'm going. I think, well, hey, Russ, you have anything you'd like to say? Closing.
Okay. So, in just addressing this, guys, let's be the consummate professionals that we can all be. That's what it comes down to. Let's, leave the gossip out of things. When in doubt, puzzle it out. I mean, it's as simple as that. Am I giving in to, just, the water cooler talk? Or am I, actually trying to do something constructive in what I'm talking about? And just view it as that. And, if we could impact just a small percentage of the workforce to be, more on the side of, stopping and interrupting and mitigating that gossip, everything would be a lot better. In one way, one facet of this thing that really dovetails into the whole gossip thing is that of your average everyday hater out there. And I'll tell you, I've dealt with so many of those guys, and that's what they do. They spread gossip, they spread hate, they view everything about corrections as negative, and those people are often allowed to fester and impact new people that are coming in, and to, actually destroy the camaraderie and the esprit de corps that we try and foster so oftentimes. So why should we allow that to happen? I can't think of a good reason for it. I enjoyed what I did. I'm not going to lie and say it was every single day. It was, great. But most of the time, I felt that I was doing a good job for society, a good job for my brothers and sisters, at the institution. I saved a lot of inmates different times, and I know that I protected the public. So there's pride to be taken in that. Don't cheapen it by doing this thing about gossip and hating and all that. My 2 cents.
No, I think it's 100% correct. As I said, guys, I mean, we've all done it. I mean, but as I said, as you start to move up, you really need people to be working together, and gossip truly does divide. So again, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and say, hey, this conversation is not for me, or, because remember, the person gossiping to you will eventually gossip about you. One day you're not going to be in the room and it's going to be about you. And then, I've seen people, the ones that start the gossip, that when they get confronted by the person, if you were in the room with them, it's like, I wasn't me. That was Joe. Joe brought it up. It's like, well, I should never been in the dialogue to begin with. At the end of the day, guys, if there's a concern, go up to the individual, time and place, but go up to the individual. Don't have dialogues without that individual knowing. Because again, a lot of the stuff is really just a wrong assumption. That could be somewhat self-serving. I love what me and Joe and Russ said before is, why are you telling me this? I'm just curious. What is that you hope to get from this? And Russ, there was somebody in your closet watching the show the whole time. So tell them I said thank you.
Yeah.
We didn't answer any of their questions, but looked like there
I
was
think that's my cat running around there trying to kill me again. I
saw some movement in there. As always, guys, the show is Tear Up. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.